Yeah. Welcome to another edition of Catharsis. I'm your host, Joseph J. Alexander. I planned on doing something earlier in the week. Didn't quite happen. Basically, I had to get some other channel stuff out of the way, as you know. So if you're here for wrestling content, bitch, today ain't your day. If you're here for Wildcard Cinema, bitch, today ain't your day. That's coming this weekend. So, why am I here? Because certain things are unforgivable. Yes, those of you that know the reference, know the reference. Now, mind you, my plan originally for when I decided to start doing this show was not to make it completely politically driven. And that's not the method of my madness. It just so happens that the amount of fuckery going on happens to fall into the political sphere lately. So for that, for some of you, I apologize. Get rid of that. So what I really wanted to talk about, I'm not really, but originally, so the original intents were several different things, but then things just keep fucking happening. And apologies, I know I look a bit disheveled. I'm not wearing the rings. I haven't shaved in a couple days. It's just the way it is. Just bullshit going on. The weather here sucks. And when the weather sucks, I'm in a lot of pain. So that's the way it happens. I know some of you question why the fuck I'm always wearing red tinted glasses. That's because I have partially detached retina that I'm having treated every few months. And this helps get rid of anything that's in my vision. It helps kind of wash things clear for me. So, originally I want to talk about the stupid ass who did the stupid ass salute and a whole bunch of shit that I went through on Twitter with that because I decided to debate with William Shatner about it and I had to block 200 people. But you know something, maybe I'll get to that next week if it's even so, because I mean that's an ongoing thing where some people are seeing the action, the consequences of their actions, but whatever. I'll get to that another time. And then we had the problem. We had the very bad issue that happened 2 nights ago with the plane crash in DC, which is horrifying. But then all the dog whistles start. Like literally, like they're still pulling bodies out of the water. And this fucking idiot is up there going, "Oh, I know why it happened. It's because of woke." I hate that shit so much. I hate that such a broad term is used for everything. And the fact that the new dog whistle is DEI. I hate it because I've been around long enough as a very angry Gen Xer to have seen the pattern of where all this has been coming from. You see, when I was younger, it was only a few years after things like the Equal Rights Amendment had been ratified. And so jobs had to start stating that they were an equal opportunity employer, EOE. That was the original term, EOE. And that basically just meant that, you know, we're not going to discriminate because of your sex or your age or whatever, yada, yada, yada. And that seemed to hold for however long. Of course, the wage gap and all that stuff, that's a completely different animal, which is still an issue to this day. But that was put in place. Equal opportunity employer. Then early 2000s, there was a reformation because people realized that certain things weren't so equal. I mean, they didn't come to the realization. It was apparent, heir apparent, as I said, like with the wage gap and all that. So there was sort of a renaissance as far as taking care of it. And that's when the term affirmative action was adopted. So, and basically it was the same thing. Affirmative action was just, saying that, people weren't going to get discriminated. And it was mostly because of racial background, more so than other things. But affirmative action and equal opportunity were basically in the same wheelhouse. And back then, 20 some odd years ago, is when people started using affirmative action as a dog whistle. I didn't get this job because of affirmative action. They hired a black person over me. No. That's not what it meant. But people who are closed-minded automatically think that because they don't get something that it was, and someone else does, that it has to be something having to do with their race or their religion or their background or yada, yada. Now, am I saying things like nepotism don't exist in this world? Absolutely not. Especially in the wrestling industry, you see nepotism all the fucking time. But 9 times out of 10, it's not a factor. So then, unfortunately, when the Orange Goblin took his first term, and he started things like the Muslim ban, things became more thrown into disarray. And in all honesty, like, when you go back and think about it, and there's something that I'm going to and keep this in mind, when you go back and think about it with the whole war on terror thing, yes, there were a lot of people targeted that shouldn't have been. But when this asshole took office, it was 15 years after all of that. And all of a sudden he's like, we need to put a Muslim ban. I'm like, there hasn't been an issue in 15 years. Why are you doing it? You know why? Because you're a fucking bigot. No, he's not. He's protecting us. Protecting us from what? Protecting me from seeing one of my closest fucking friends that I haven't seen in years? Because he moved over to the Middle East to become a teacher and he got married and him and his wife can't come back to fucking America because this asshole. I've got a very fucking close friend who's a teacher in the United Arab Emirates who I have not seen in years, that I miss dearly, that I cannot see because of this asshole. And that's just me. I'm not saying that I'm more important than anyone else, but if I feel that with just a very close friend, God knows what so many thousands of other fucking families are going through. So after he got out, they decided to do some reformation. And that was when the term DEI came into the zeitgeist. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, which was basically just equal opportunity. It was just affirmative action. It was just updated. And it was updated because every few years, the bigots on the right side decide to target another group of people. And it's been that way since the 50s. I mean, it's been that way longer, but as far as the cultural zeitgeist, after Lyndon Baines Johnson was the last of the Southern Democrats. After that was basically when that was basically when the parties flipped, and the Republicans became the party of extreme bigotry, racism, all that. And am I saying all Republicans are? No, but I know a lot of people that say they vote Republican and then can't tell me why. And that just falls on ignorance, which is just as bad as bigotry. So now we have this fucking asshole blaming a plane crash on DEI. They hadn't even figured out who was where when it happened, because I'm almost positive that the pilots of both the helicopter and the airplane were white men. as they've come to find out. But no, it's got to be DEI. It's got to be DEI. It had nothing to do with the fact that the FAA literally got gutted a week before, and that night there was one tower operator and one person on the ground in an area where there should have been far more because of cuts, because of the stupid bullshit this fucker has been doing in his first 10 days in office. 10 days. And so he goes and he literally says, oh, well, they're started letting people in, people who have bad eyesight and this, that, and dwarfism. I'm like, and I was sitting there, I was like, how the fuck? And I guarantee he was doing some publicity spot at a fucking airport, and he turned and he saw a TSA employee that was probably like 5'2". And he's like, they got midgets working here. And that's where this whole shit came from. Dwarfism. Such bullshit. Like, I don't know if you realize, but to be a pilot, you kind of have to have good eyesight. Like, you can't wear glasses to be a pilot. It's one of the requirements. And I'm not saying commercial, I'm saying military, because there was a Black Hawk. That was it. Yeah, if any of y'all realize, if any of you remember that awful movie Little Miss Sunshine, there's the son in it who's taking the vow of silence, and it's the whole thing like he wants to become a fucking Air Force pilot. And then at one point he finds out that he's nearsighted, which means he has glasses, which means he can't be in the Air Force in an airplane, and he just loses his shit, which is like one of the only two funny parts in the movie. Yeah. So the Black Hawk helicopter was not, whoever was there was not DEI. Like, I hate this shit so much. And the reason I hate the shit so much is because it's always a fucking dog whistle. And there's always a fucking reason for it. Some of you don't realize because, he signed all the like, they literally stood there when he was signing off all the stupid fucking EOs. And the guy said, this is to end the woke agenda. Fuck you. Seriously, fuck you. To literally say that in the hallowed halls of the fucking Oval Office is such utter bullshit. This is to end the woke agenda and DEI. And literally every memo came out that was basically like, we don't want DEI. And literally it was aimed at fucking LGBTQ people, especially trans people, which is, I hate to tell you this, trans people have existed for thousands of years. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean they don't exist, and doesn't mean they're going to stop existing. But nope, we got to end all this. But some of y'all don't realize that DEI doesn't just include the people that you fucking hate. All these stupid ass trad wives on fucking TikTok who are all like, yeah, we got DEI done. Now we ain't got to worry about men in the bathroom and public. That had nothing to fucking do with it. It never fucking did. But I don't think you seem to realize that DEI being rolled back means basically it's undoing affirmative action and the Equal Opportunity Act. It's going all the way back. It's basically going all the way back to we're right where we are around the time of the ERA. The next stop is going to be women can't vote again. And if you think that's me jumping to conclusions, yes, but it's a very logical conclusion because of this bullshit, because he is dehumanizing people. And the thing is, when he sits there and lists off all these things about people with disabilities and how they're harmful to our country, well, you know something? You've just targeted me. Some of you may be asking, what am I talking about? Am I talking about my partially detached retina? No, that's not what I'm talking about. Because some of you that watch this know me in my personal life. Some of you don't. So let me fill you in on something. When I wake up every morning, this is my life. This goes on my right leg because I had to have a major fusion done, and I have a titanium rod all the way up my right leg, and this is a stabilizer. I have to wear this every time I leave the house. And some of you saying, oh, that's not that bad. So what? So what? Because this is my left fucking leg. I'm a below the knee amputee. I lost my leg 5 years ago. Sorry, 6 years ago. 6 years next month. And the amount of shit that I've had to go through. I've had 53 surgeries in the past 13 years. A lot of them were to save my leg originally. Ended up not happening. Most of my time in the house, I'm in a wheelchair. When I mentioned how when the weather sucks, I'm in pain, that's no fucking joke. But this asshole seems to think it's okay to dehumanize people like me. And that really pisses me off. But then on top of it, because everything's got to be blamed on the last administration, because this is the problem, is a lot of people are like, well, he's only been in office for 10 days and he's already done a shitload of damage and he's about to do a lot more, which I'll get to in a minute. But he's only been in office for 10 days, so of course he's got to blame the former administration. Yeah, see, here's the thing. The last time he was in office, in his 4th year, he was still blaming everything on the previous administration. And it's going to be the same this time. Every time he fucks up, he's going to blame it on the previous administration. Because that's his fucking MO, is it's never my fault. And here's the biggest fucking kicker of it all. Because we have dumbasses who are elected officials. Why? Because they come from states where the education level is so bad and people are not educated that they just listen to whatever sound bites they hear and they vote for that fucker. Like I said, ignorance is just as bad as bigotry. And we get bullshit like this. Senator Mike Lee calls for the abolishing of the TSA. Let the airlines do their own screening. And the person who shared this said, guys, it happened. It's been over 23 years and someone finally forgot. Never forget. Never forget. 23 years since 9/11, which is why the TSA has all the abilities they have. And this guy says, let's just get rid of it. And I thought it was very funny because a close friend I sent that to actually said to me, said, you going to reimburse the remaining 4 years and 9 months of my pre-check there, Senator? Because I have a friend that goes on a lot of traveling trips and has to do all the pre-check stuff and has trips lined up for the next 5 years. I'm going to reimburse her for that. And then she also said, holy shit, will they smother him in his sleep when they realize Clear's retina scans are only available to the government because of 9/11? The retina scans that are used in so many government operations were originally used for the TSA that were imbibed because of 9/11, because of the war on terror. Yeah. Yeah. But hey, no, woke is the problem. Woke is always the problem. And the thing is, woke wasn't even a term that was used for very long. It got bastardized almost immediately. Because it had to do with people, their eyes were open. They woke up and realized, I've been asleep. A lot of it came from references to shit like the Matrix. But being woke is not a bad fucking thing. Being woke just means you have empathy. It means you understand that the world is not all sunshine and roses. And this is coming from someone who literally is wearing rose-tinted glasses. But that was that. And that was bad enough. That was bad enough. But then, unfortunately, today, we get the reminder of the shit about the tariffs. Now, mind you, I'm recording this on January 31st, 2025. And unfortunately, we have dumbasses. And this happened.
Friends at Reuters are reporting that the president has made a decision on the Canada and Mexico tariffs, but that they won't actually be implemented until March 1st. I was wondering if you could confirm that and talk through some of the president's thinking there.
I saw that report and it is false. I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans.
Now, mind you, the whole illegal fentanyl thing is another dog whistle. Is there a fentanyl issue? Yes. Most of the fentanyl is either sourced in America or it is brought across the border by legal Americans.
These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
The president yesterday said that last night he was planning to discuss whether an exemption would be made on oil imports. Do you have any information on what decision he made there, or will there be exemptions at all offered under those?
I don't have an update or readout for you on the exemptions, but those tariffs will be for public consumption in about 24 hours tomorrow, so you can read them then.
That bullshit. So, yeah. So, as of tomorrow, the 25% tariffs that this fucker threatened are going to go into effect. Now, y'all notice I always have a coffee mug, usually. There's a reason I chose my Killer Clowns one today. Because we have killer clowns in the White House. The coffee that I'm drinking is a coffee that I save for certain occasions. It was a gift that I received last year from a friend who was up in Prince Edward Island in Canada. I asked them to look for something for me, and they found a couple of things. Little backstory. My mentor, who passed in 2010, Mike Milano, when we used to reminisce about things, he lived in Canada for quite a bit of time. And he used to talk about this one liquor that he drank up there called Newfie Screech. It's a spiced rum. So it's a line of rum, but he drank the spiced. He talked about how he loved Newfie Screech because he drank it all the time, and it was super cheap. So I said, their kid goes to college up in PEI, and they would go up there for load in and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, anything you want." Well, I'm up there. I'm like, please just find me some Newfie Screech. I picked up a bottle once at a State Line store in New Hampshire. It's since been gone. I would like to have some more on hand. And they came back and they actually handed me a bag of coffee beans. They were roasted coffee beans that had been soaked in Newfie Screech. So that's a special occasion type thing. And the reason it's not a good occasion, but the reason I decided to make some today, and very little, I only made 2 cups worth, is just to stand in solidarity with Canada. It's a Canadian product that I know now if I want, ain't happening. And I don't think people seem to realize what this fucker is doing. So it looks like it's up to old JJ to have to try to educate some of y'all. So, and this is one of the things where it's the downfall of American education. Like I said, I'm an angry Gen Xer. I graduated high school almost 30 years ago. Back then, apparently we were taught differently. And we were taught we actually learned shit that was relevant. required classes and required learning were vastly different, apparently. We had civics class. We learned about, I remember 7th grade through 9th grade, especially, geography. We learned about world cultures, U.S. history. We learned about things, after the U.S., after the Revolutionary War, because that seems to be everything everyone focused on. We always got these fucking history books, and we never really got past like the Civil War. That's what I never really understood. 9th grade civics class, learning about elections, learning about, checks and balances and all. And apparently no one fucking learns that anymore. So they just listen to whatever news station they're watching says. And unfortunately, a lot of the news stations can't be trusted. They're just not as informative as they used to be, because ever since fucking Roger Ailes came around and helped form Fox News, everything has become a shit show, because that's when partisan politics became the norm on news channels. If you ever want to watch a dramatized version of it because you find learning boring, watch the series The Loudest Voice in the Room. I think the book is called The Loudest Voice in the Room. I believe the series is just called The Loudest Voice. It stars Russell Crowe as Roger Ailes and Seth MacFarlane's in it. I think it was a Showtime original series. I'm sure you can find it out there. Or read the book if you actually are a reader. Read The Loudest Voice in the Room and learn how Roger Ailes was instrumental in the fucking over of the modern news cycle. Also, watch. There's a documentary that came out back in 2004 called 2004 or 5 called Outfoxed. It's free on YouTube. In fact, I will link it below. Watch that shit, because even though it's 20 years old, it's still fucking relevant. Also, there's a documentary on, it used to be on Prime. I believe it still is. It's called The Brainwashing of My Dad. It was an independent documentary. It was crowdfunded about a woman whose father started becoming ultra right wing because it was the only media that he was able to consume where he was. Yada, yada. It's a long story. And how it affected everything. And it's a great watch. But yeah. So I don't think y'all realize what tariffs do, how relevant they are in today's standards, and what it means for the country. So I'm going to pull up a clip from NBC News, and hopefully this is going to help out a little bit.
Most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich.
Tariffs are a major part of President-elect Donald Trump's foreign policy and economic agenda.
We want fairness from other countries. We have not been treated fairly, and we're going to get fairness.
Put simply, tariffs are a tax on goods from another country paid by the company importing them, usually to protect national industries or as a trade negotiation tool. Quick history lesson. In the U.S., tariffs started out steep.
You can say there were 3 distinct periods of tariff history in the United States, from, say, 1790 to 1860, when tariffs were the main source of federal revenue. Something like 90% of all federal revenues was based on taxing imports. From the Civil War to the Great Depression of the 1930s, we had tariffs for protection. Tariffs were raised to very high levels on a variety of imports, and basically those industries were protected.
But that changed in the mid-1930s.
Policymakers decided that high tariffs were not really good for the American economy. So from the 1930s all the way up to now, we've had a progressively lower and lower tariffs.
In 2018, President Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on China, an effort to reduce the trade deficit and boost U.S. manufacturing. The Biden administration kept most of these tariffs and, in some cases, even raised them on $18 billion of Chinese goods, though the move is said to be largely symbolic.
The 2018 tariffs do appear, as best economists can judge things, to have raised the price level by 1% to 2%.
Larry Summers is former U.S. Treasury Secretary under Democratic President Bill Clinton. He says the tariffs were not effective.
The evidence is that they made a small
Not effective.
contribution to inflation. Tariffs tend to make the people in the countries who impose them poorer because they raise the price of what they buy, and that makes paychecks go less far.
But others, like Orrin Cass, chief economist at conservative think tank American Compass, say tariffs ultimately benefit the economy.
What we saw in 2018 when President Trump first imposed a lot of tariffs was there were some places where there was an effect on prices. A lot of times that was short-lived. When we do collect tariffs, if people do have to pay more, that's tax revenue that goes to the government. So we can use that to reduce other taxes. We can use that to reduce our deficit. We can use that to actually support the creation of more manufacturing here in the United States.
While the efficacy of tariffs is still widely debated, their international reach is indisputable. After President Trump's tariffs on China in 2018, the country retaliated with tariffs of its own on U.S. goods. Now in 2025, Mexico is threatening to do the same after President Trump said he would impose strict tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada.
I think we may be in the midst of a sort of third big change in U.S. tariff policy.
And that's Tariffs Simply Explained.
So, tariffs had their place many, 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 many years ago. Not so much anymore. That conservative think tank asshole was like, oh, well, it helps. Yeah, see, there's giant glaring problems. Biden actually tried to fix some of this shit with the CHIPS Act and actually bringing some manufacturing back to America. See, since NAFTA, and even before NAFTA, since NAFTA, the problem is companies that are based in America outsource all of their labor to other countries because they didn't want to pay a minimum wage. That was how they got around the formation of the minimum wage, because they never liked that. And we still have a major problem with the minimum wage because the federal minimum wage is literally still $7.25 an hour. No one can survive on that. And don't try to give me that whole, that's meant for high schoolers flipping burgers. No! Because way before there was high schoolers flipping burgers, there were people breaking their backs in fucking factories for a non-livable wage, which is why the minimum wage was instated. You don't seem to realize that. But yeah, these companies sent all their fucking jobs to another country so that they can keep maximizing profits because they're publicly traded on the fucking stock exchange and they want their stock to go up because of investors. But here's the problem. The average U.S. citizen does not invest in stock. They don't have the money to. The investors, the major investors of stock, are the people that are already fucking rich. The rich keep getting richer and richer and richer, and the middle class keeps getting more poor. So it's to appease the fat cats that are already fucking up there. That's why a lot of people, when they say buy local, all that stuff, is because local companies aren't traded on the stock exchange, so they don't have shareholders to appease. Like, unless you have an exorbitant amount of revenue already to get into the stock market, it doesn't affect you as far as what the stock of a company goes. It doesn't affect you in that way. However, what does affect you is the fact is when the Dow Jones drops down, which a lot of people don't even know what the fucking Dow Jones is. The Dow Jones is a collective of the top traded stocks on the New York Stock Exchange. And it's the collective amount that they're all worth. So when the Dow drops, that means that that means that a bunch of companies are starting to lose money. And already today, with the implementation of the tariffs, the Dow has already dropped, I think, at least 200 points at the time of me recording this. So they send companies overseas. Companies send their labor overseas because in China, they can pay people 25 cents a fucking hour instead of having to pay someone $7.25 here. And if you think it's like, well, that's what makes our products so cheap. Yeah, and they're cheaply made, and there's recalls and all that stuff. If stuff were to be built in America, it would only cost you a minuscule amount more than what's going to happen now. Because here's the problem. Now, mind you, it's funny how it's 25% on Mexico and Canada, but only 10% on China. You know why? Because the bulk of our imports come from China. And if you think that it's just the stuff that's on the shelf in Walmart, you're wrong. There's always a method to my madness. You saw me sitting here with my shaker. It's my daily like vitamin stuff, collagen, all that stuff to help with my joints. But there's a reason. You see, wifey, she is a chemist. That's her day job. I love them smart. Been together for almost 15 years. She is a chemist. The company she works for, and I'm trying to round about this so nothing gets back to her, so I'm trying to not let the label be shown on this because it's one of their clients. What they do in her company is they take in all the raw materials from China of everything that basically goes into every pre-mixed, pre-packaged, pre-bottled food that you see on your grocery store shelf. And if you think, well, I don't eat processed foods, blah, 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 blah. No. It's everything. If you buy one of those fucking the juice smoothies in the produce section from like, Naked or Bolt House or whatever you're at, yeah, that stuff like that is in there. You buy vitamin water, it's in there. You buy water with electrolytes, it's in there. The raw materials that they get that are then blended are the stuff that are the basis of, it's not preservatives, it's the enrichment stuff that's in it. It's the vitamin C, the ascorbic acid, the vitamin A, the ashwagandha, anything that's in, fucking L-arginine. All that stuff comes to the company that she runs the lab for, in powdered form, and they have to mix all the powders. And I worked there briefly. Worked at these big giant blenders the size of my house, get mixed, and then stuff goes into containers to go off to these companies for this powder to be added to whatever product it's being used for. Every time you see something that says fortified with vitamins and minerals, that's where it's coming from, and it all comes from fucking China. If you do shit like my preset, if you have get anything from GNC, anything pre-workout, creatine, if you fucking have a subscription to fucking AG1, same shit, all comes from China. All of it. So that's why China only got the 10% tariff. We're still going to fucking feel it. But Canada and Mexico, see, here's the problem is, this will bring jobs back to America. No, it fucking won't. Here's the problem. They want to say, we'll bring manufacturing jobs back. We'll bring manufacturing jobs back. Nothing is going to be manufactured in America. Number one, because they don't want to pay the minimum fucking wage, which is just fucking sad because they can afford it. How sad is it that someone can't afford to live in this country, but the fucking people who are on the board of directors are all pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars a year? The more money than they would be able to spend in 10 fucking lifetimes. There's only so many fucking of these multi-fucking millionaires and billionaires that own sports teams in this country. Anyone else, they're just sitting on all this fucking money for no fucking reason. Feudalism is still alive in just a different fucking method. And that's what's so fucking sad. But none of y'all seem to understand that shit. But yeah. So anyways, one other clip I wanted to bring up was Justin Trudeau speaking about the tariffs. Because like I said, I stand with Canada on this. Let me bring that up.
I'm glad you've all joined me today because we're in a critical moment. As President Trump stated yesterday, he is still committed to placing tariffs on Canada starting as early as tomorrow, possibly. Now, we don't know precisely what that could look like, but I do know two things. First, if the president does choose to implement any tariffs against Canada, we're ready with a response, a purposeful, forceful, but reasonable, immediate response. It's not what we want, but if he moves forward, we will also act. Deuxièmement, on est prêt pour tous les scénarios possibles. We're ready for whatever scenario comes forward. Et ça, notamment, c'est grâce à vous tous. Votre travail est d'une valeur inestimable et son impact se fait déjà ressentir. The way you have all pulled together regions of the country, industries, thoughtful business leaders and thought leaders to unite as part of Team Canada, to be ready and flexible, whatever comes, is not just the right thing to do, it's also deeply reassuring to Canadians, reassuring to business owners, to workers, and to people around the world who look to Canada as a key partner. You've been speaking out, stressing that tariffs against Canada would have disastrous consequences for the United States, putting American jobs at risk, raising prices on Americans, and undermining our collective security. Votre point de vue et vos conseils ont été d'une valeur inestimable pour guider notre réponse à la menace d'imposition de droits de douane. Vous avez aidé à rassurer les Canadiens pendant une période difficile et pleine d'incertitudes. You've shown what it means to be part of Team Canada, fighting for this country we all love so much.
Sorry.
At the same time, our government has responded to what the president is focused on and what is motivating him to consider applying tariffs as early as tomorrow, the flow of fentanyl and illegal crossings into the United States.
Such bullshit.
Now, let me reiterate it. Our border is safe and secure.
Yeah.
And less than 1% of fentanyl and illegal crossings into the United States come from Canada.
Right.
We're committed to keeping it that way by addressing current challenges and strengthening our capacity. That's why we're implementing the $1.3 billion border plan we announced late last year. In fact, the first patrol helicopters began monitoring the border earlier this week, and new canine teams along with imaging tools are being deployed to detect and stop the flow of fentanyl. Meanwhile, our previously implemented border measures are already showing results too. We've ended the practice of flagpoling, when temporary residents travel to the United States only to immediately return to Canada to access immigration services, a decision that's saving Canadian and American border officials time and resources.
And I'll talk about flagpoling in a minute.
We're bringing in heightened security for visa applications, which has resulted in an 89% drop in illegal crossings by foreign citizens to the United States in the second half of last year. This is real progress. As the President's Commerce Secretary nominee acknowledged the other day, it demonstrates that we are committed to the Canada-US relationship, committed to upholding the safety and security of our shared border. And while we will continue to explain that Canada is the trading partner the United States needs for its long-term prosperity and global security,
which is true.
Canada has steel and aluminum, critical minerals, clean and affordable energy, stable democratic institutions, shared values, and the best workers in the world. Right now, we're showing the new American administration that they have a strong partner in Canada when it comes to upholding border security, all while simultaneously underscoring that we won't back down, that if tariffs are implemented against Canada, we will respond. We won't relent until tariffs are removed, and of course, everything is on the table. Part of what this council has been doing is pulling together perspectives from across industries, from across different parts of the country to make sure that anything we do will be fair right across the country, that all Canadians will share in the job of standing up for our interests and, quite frankly, standing up to defend the most successful trading relationship in the world. One of the things that this council has been very strong on is saying that this is the opportunity for Canada to move forward internally on free trade within Canada. As we look at challenges with the United States, as we sign free trade deals over the past years with the world, we know that internally, within provinces and across territories, there are barriers that exist that would be better for Canadian businesses, Canadian workers, and the Canadian economy if we removed. So we have stepped up our actions on internal trade. As we speak right now, Minister Anita Anand is hosting a meeting of provincial trade ministers elsewhere in this building to move forward on ambitious proposals on internal trade. We know there are things we can do to increase Canada's competitiveness and effectiveness in a more complex world. And moving forward on internal trade with new energy is something that this council has been directly encouraging us and responsible for us doing.
And I'll leave it at that. There's a little more to that. I will link the entire video down below. So, I agree, Titus. All right, buddy. Come here. Come here. Here. Puppy Dog's here to tell you to like and subscribe. Right, Titus? Come here. Come here. Up. That's right. Tell him. Look at him. Look at him over here. Say like and subscribe, please. Good boy. How are you going to say no to that face? Anyways, so flagpoling. That's been an issue going on since before the Affordable Care Act started. Basically what flagpoling is there's people in the U.S. who live near the Canadian border. A lot of the time they'll cross over in like northern Michigan over to Ontario, but it also happens in Minnesota, Vermont, a lot of things. It's people that, while healthcare is available to all in the United States right now, a lot of people don't access it, or the people that do have access just have really shitty plans. I worked for my state's healthcare exchange for a number of years. And I used to have to impersonate a broker because the outsourced company didn't want to pay the brokers as much. And that's, once again, this shit happens everywhere. I was working, making not much higher above minimum wage, and they had me impersonating someone who was supposed to be getting paid $28 an hour because of my knowledge and because of the fact that I formerly had an insurance license years before. That's a story for another day. But anyways, so people will have healthcare, but it doesn't cover anything. So what happens is flagpoling people will do things like claim residency with a friend who lives over the border so that they can travel over to get life-affirming healthcare if they have major issues. Or in some cases now will travel there because their area doesn't offer Planned Parenthood related services because of this administration and what it has done in the past. Agreed. Go tell him, Titus. So, my picture's crooked. Rampaging puppy makes my picture go crooked. I'll have to fix that later. Anyways, I bet you didn't even notice until I said it. So, that's the flagpoling issue. And that's because healthcare in America still greatly sucks. Luckily, not luckily, I mean, no luck, but because of my situation, I'm on Medicare. I have access to the best healthcare that I can get. My claims don't get denied. And, I don't have a I have a prescription deductible I need to meet, which actually isn't that bad. And that's really like, I still have lower copays. Yes, you're a good boy. Daddy loves you. Yes. I still have copays. They're not nearly as bad as some people are paying. And once I have paid so much out of pocket for copays, then everything for the rest of the year is covered. It's my out of pocket max on my prescriptions. I have very good coverage, which I'm blessed to have. Because on top of all my surgeries, I've had to do things like weeks upon weeks of hyperbaric oxygen treatments. And those treatments run $25,000 a treatment at minimum. And people are like, whoa, that's because of the insurance companies. And that's because hospitals and everything. It's a whole lot. Our healthcare system is fucked and it needs to be fixed. Anyone that supports Bernie Sanders and has for years knows why. He's been pushing for Medicare for all for forever. And as someone who's been on Medicare for a number of years, yes, Medicare for all would work. And that's something that has been spoken about since the 90s. Watch the movie Bulworth. If you watch Wildcard Cinema, you know we talked about this when we reviewed Bulworth, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Warren Beatty talked about it in that, about how if you did Medicare for all, it would only cost the American taxpayers like 3 cents on the dollar or 12 cents on the dollar versus 80 cents on the dollar that it costs with privatized medicine. Like, we're the only first world country that doesn't have universal health care. And they did everything they could for me when they did. My first couple of years, I wasn't on Medicare. And I was paying out of pocket for insurance. I had Medicaid for a short bit when I was unemployed, but I was paying out of pocket. And that prevented me from doing a lot of things. It's one of the things I don't like to fucking admit, but I proposed to wifey a long fucking time ago. I still had 2 legs, so you know it's at least that long. And I wanted nothing more than to just have a nice wedding. You know, only plan on doing it once. Like to do something nice, have a nice wedding where we can invite people and then have a nice few-day honeymoon in a destination. I've never traveled outside this country. But because of everything that happened back then and what everything has led to, I don't have shit in savings. We got lucky to get this house. We bought it at a time where house flippers were fucking getting shit the moment it went on the market. And this house we got it. I don't want to say it's a steal, but we got it at a very, very, very good price. Where the fact is now, if we were to turn around and sell it, we could get nearly double what we agreed to pay for it. The only problem is everywhere else is skyrocketed too. But it took a lot of time and a lot of penny pinching, a lot of, fiddle fucking in order to do it. And we got it. We got a mortgage that's affordable for us with a 2-income household. But with this asshole and all the fucking freezes he's doing and shit, and if he wants to go after Medicare next, that means that everything's going to lie on wifey for us to keep this fucking house. Like, and I mentioned in past episodes how we budget everything. We signed up for our CSA last night. Held on to it. We're splitting a full CSA with producer Lady Shell. We did it. I've been doing meal preps. The CSA doesn't start until June, but we're supporting a local business. I hold good on my word. That's the thing, is I'll never lie to you on this show. I know a lot of people say that, but I will never lie, and I will never put up information under false pretenses. Because what good does that do anyone? That would be like me turning to, and I'm not trying to demean anyone who is watching this. Don't take it this way. But that would be like me going to like a 3rd grader and telling him all of these things about how the world works that are all just fucking lies. And because they see that I'm an older person and that I speak eloquently about certain things and know what I'm talking about, that must be true. And that's the state of a lot of news media now. Because you got assholes like fucking Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson using $5 words. They must know what they're talking about. It's not the case. It's not the case. But yeah, let me get back. I've gone off on a tangent. Let me get back to Canada. So the other problem, manufacturing jobs. Here's the issue. Just in my town and my area of the state alone, you can take a drive and within 3 minutes of my house all the way up to 45 minutes away from my house. So the radius of at least half of my state, in every city and some towns, you will see at least one empty factory building, at least one, or an empty warehouse building, or you will see factories that are being renovated now or have been renovated into loft apartments or like mini malls, for lack of a term. There's a place that comes to mind in the city in the town I went to high school in, where literally in downtown there were 2 giant factories. And after I graduated and back and forth or whatever, I had a small studio apartment right between the 2. And a couple of the guys that lived in my building worked at the one next to us. And the one across the street, people were talking about, we don't know how much longer it's going to last. Now, to this day, the one that was across the street is gone. It got leveled and they're building condos there. The one across the tracks there has been renovated into space that people are renting. And there's a really shitty brewery in there now. And there's a knockoff barcade in there. There's a really good cupcake place. There's a really good coffee place in it, but little shops. But they had to renovate part of it. But I mean, that's still not the whole building. Luckily that town has been able to do something with at least that. But there's still plenty of other buildings around that are just sitting there and have been. You go up to, for those of you that know me from wrestling, back when I started running, I was running in Torrington, Connecticut. The reason I ran in Torrington was by design. It wasn't just because I found a couple of venues that would take us. That wasn't why. I mean, it was part of it because I was like, I can run in this venue and this is affordable. But the reason was I looked at the area. I looked at the people. And Torrington was a lower to middle class city. There wasn't a lot going on. So I knew that if I was to run an entertainment thing there, that I could draw the local people because they had nothing in town. They had a little movie theater with 3 screens. They had there's a Warner Theater in town. For any of you that remember the chain of Warner Theaters, there's not many left. That's been renovated over the years, that runs plays and stuff like that. But most of the events at Warner they go to the season ticket holders, which are all the rich assholes in New York who have separate homes in Litchfield County. So that they do that. So that's their arts. So that they don't have to pay Broadway prices. Yada, yada. There's not a lot of stuff going on. And I looked at how many empty factory buildings there were in town. And I said, this is where I want to run. Because I know if I charge an affordable price and I let the people know about it, I can draw. And that's why I ran there for a few years. And then I started noticing things. And I started looking and I said, I don't think we should run here anymore. And it wasn't because I didn't like the people or the town. It's just because things were getting worse. There were more homeless people in the park. More of the businesses downtown that I used to put up flyers in their window were closed. They were gone. Literally, there's a restaurant. There was a restaurant next to the Warner Theater that literally, like, you're right there. So the theater crowd is there for you before the shows and after the shows. As long as the Warner's running shows, you can make money. And at the time, they were a gastropub and they had an amazing tap list. When I was doing, for some of y'all know, I was a fucking stage actor. And when I was doing shows at the Warner, I loved being able to go there afterwards. It was fucking great. Me and the cast members after rehearsal, we'd go there, we'd have a beer or two, we'd have an appetizer. We would love life. They shut down. They couldn't survive. Partially because the rent got raised, but still, the rent got raised because of the greedy developers that owned the fucking buildings. It all goes back to corporate greed and the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. And then I started noticing like businesses all around town couldn't survive. And the one kicker was there was a Subway, not train Subway, sandwich shop. There was a Subway right smack dab at the main light in the center of town. You know, the center of the downtown district. It was right there. They closed. The moment that happened, I said, this town is dead. I can't run here anymore. I didn't. Someone also poached my venue and ran it into the fucking ground. That's another story for another day. And that's really not for this show. That's for the wrestling stuff. But now you go through that town. It's all abandoned. Now it's abandoned factory buildings and abandoned retail space. So why am I saying this? Because nothing can survive here when you have companies that don't want to pay their people a fair wage. So doing this tariff bullshit is not going to do anything but make consumer goods cost more, as the clip that I played you did. Canada, you heard Justin Trudeau say it. They get steel, aluminum, and they get timber. So even if in a magical fairy tale world, this somehow brings manufacturing jobs back to the U.S., which would require these companies to actually move back into cities that they have abandoned, to invest in the real estate where the factories are, to invest in cleaning them up to meet environmental standards before you even get a fucking single machine in the door. And before hiring a single person back, like this isn't something that happens overnight. If in a magical fairy tale world, this provided the chance for more jobs in America, you're looking at something that's not going to happen for at least 2 fucking years. And that's going to be 2 years of suffering for the American consumer. Even if you were to do that and bring the jobs back to America, like this fucker says, we still need to get all of our raw materials. Remember I mentioned raw materials. We still need to get all of our raw materials for any form of manufacturing from fucking China, from fucking Canada, from fucking Mexico. So what happens? We brought jobs back. Okay, we've all been suffering for 2 years. Okay, I got a job. I got a job in a factory. And they're going to give me, and this is what's bad, like stay in Connecticut. Connecticut right now, the minimum wage is $15 an hour, I believe, maybe 16. I got a job in a factory and I get $17 an hour. I get $1 above minimum wage to risk my fucking life on heavy fucking machinery that at that point, because of this administration, there's probably no fucking regulations left. So you're probably sitting there breathing in toxic fumes, working on machinery that's going to fall apart. Because guess what? All that machinery gets built in fucking China. Doesn't get built here. You're working on machinery that's going to break down. They're probably going to disband fucking OSHA by that time. You think I'm jumping into conclusions, but this is the path that we're on. And we're going to be back to the fucking beginning of the industrial age with 12-year-olds working in factories 18 hours a day for below minimum wage, because that's one of the things that they've already passed in some fucking states where they will hire people under 16 for below the minimum wage. And the state says, okay, look at Arkansas. Look at Miss Piggy Sarah B. fucking hucking standards. She fucking did it already. And we're going to get people dying of fucking toxic fumes, black lung, more cancer, more carcinogens, less fucking shit that's fucking, what do you call it? Less shit that's regulated as far as safety goes in any manufacturing that's done. And on top of all of that, we're still getting our raw materials from places with a 25% tariff. So you know what that means? It means the companies in this magical fairy tale world that have brought the jobs back are going, well, we have to pay people minimum wage now. So that means we're going to have to charge more for our goods. And on top of that, we have to get all our raw materials from Canada, from China. So we got to raise it more. So yeah, you're making $17 an hour and a head of lettuce in the grocery store, because guess what? That's the other thing with this bullshit with Mexico and all that shit with not bringing in migrant workers, which is a whole nother fucking story. I won't even say a head of lettuce because that's picked. I will go with a box of cereal. A box of breakfast cereal in this magical fantasy world where they brought back this, but we're still paying this and we're still paying that and everything. A box of Cheerios is going to run you $15 fucking. And you may think this is me giving you some dystopian scare tactics. No, we're already on our way. You go to the fucking grocery store now and it's bad. And people, what do you call it? Inflation? Yes, inflation is an issue. However, inflation got brought down during the last administration. This fucker's taking credit for it now. Inflation's about to get a lot worse. You're not going to be able to stretch your dollar nearly as far. And I remember everyone bitching the first couple of weeks of COVID about how a pound of ground beef is costing me $10. This is bullshit. Well, yeah. You see, remember the part about how tariffs and they affected this much, blah, 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 blah. They didn't mention COVID because when COVID hit, there was a limitation on what could come into the U.S. and there was a limitation on what could be produced because the meatpacking plants were forced to close because they were spreading fucking COVID and there was fucking recalls and shit. Now we've got a bird flu epidemic. That y'all bitching about eggs don't realize that bird flu is what's bringing it up. And it's only going to get worse if this asshole's fucking people who are running OSHA and the EPA and all that shit go, fuck it, no regulations. It's not going to bring the cost down. It's going to bring it back up. And people are going to start fucking dying. You don't seem to realize the scope of everything that this fucker is doing is going to make things so much worse. And all of you were like, I wanted cheaper gas and eggs. And trust me, a year from now, you're going to be going, where's my cheaper gas and eggs? You know, all this shit. You know, he stopped the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal never got fucking passed. Y'all don't realize that. It never got passed. Is there more energy efficient stuff that had been done? Yes, it had been done by the states. Federally, there was a little bit more federal funding for green energy, but the Green New Deal never fucking passed. And that's going to make things worse. You know, all these people are like, oh, I don't got to worry about blah, blah, blah. Because this is the thing. And here's the fucking problem, too, is Netflix came out with a movie a couple years back. I watched it once, and it was a very well-done movie, but I can never watch it again because it literally gave me anxiety. It's called Don't Look Up. Leonardo DiCaprio was in it. Meryl Streep was in it. Watch it. You're going to have to watch it in increments like I did because it gets really fucking stressful. But in it, you basically see that the rich don't fucking care because they've got an exit strategy. Now that they got stupid boy sitting there with an office fucking getting employed by the Orange Goblin. Yeah, go ahead and try and clip that shit because I know you want to. They're like, he builds rockets. We're going to colonize Mars. That's what they're betting on, not realizing that his fucking rockets are not the most reliable. Once again, it's also in Don't Look Up. Watch it. Watch the part where they decide to fucking mine the fucking asteroid instead of destroying it, and you'll see what I fucking mean. They think that they're just going to be able to leave us all. All the super rich are like, we're just going to, oh, the country ran out of oil? Fuck it. We're going to Mars. That's what they think they're going to do. It's the same thing that happened in the late 1800s. The rich fucking elites all said, we're just going to go a little further out west. That's what they did. Manifest destiny. They said, we're going to go a little further out west and we're going to mine and we're going to do this and we're going to chop down trees and we're going to kill buffalo and we're going to make the money off of it. A little further out west, a little further out west, a little further out west. Then they got to the coast. Said, oh, well, we're here. And start building up and start burning coal everywhere. Black smoke into the fucking air. Then a little while later, they said, we're running out of shit. We're running out of places to drill. We're running out of timber. All of a sudden, we annex Alaska. One of the most beautiful places you'll ever fucking see. And they start raping that place. And this fucker just goes, literally, because Mount McKinley, and they said, no, it's called Denali. Just fucking sign an order. No, it's Mount McKinley. Fuck you. It's Denali. It always will be. Things are about to get real fucking bad, people. About 8 hours from now, it's going to be February 1st when I'm recording this, not when you're watching this. Obviously. Get your grocery shopping done now. You got anything that you're putting off buying, do it now. Because come March, you're going to be begging for $6 eggs. You're going to be begging for $4 a gallon gas. You like avocados? Fuck you. Today ain't show day. You like tequila? Today ain't show day. You like maple syrup? Today ain't your fucking day. You like potatoes? Yeah, guess what? A lot of potatoes we get in the U.S. come from Canada. You realize something? Because here's something, a little tip for you. Most of the potatoes in the U.S., most of a certain varietal, are all bought by one corporation, McDonald's, so that their fries taste the same everywhere. So that means for the American consumer, a lot of our potatoes either come from Maine or from Canada. You get Idaho every once in a while, but a lot of Idaho potatoes go to Mexico. Not Mexico, McDonald's, sorry. A lot of potatoes come from Canada, from Maine. You like potatoes? Bend over. Today ain't your day. I said, bitch, today ain't your day. I'm sorry, Titus. I know Daddy's yelling a lot. It stresses out the puppy when I yell. He knows I'm not mad at him, though. Right, buddy? Come here. Come here. Come on up. Daddy loves you. It's a good thing I got to get back to it a little more, but thanks to a friend, I make this guy's food. And it's a good thing I do. Because dog food's about to go through the fucking roof. And I want this guy to live a long time. We have an agreement. But I think I've ranted enough for this edition. Once again, I've gone over an hour. I never planned on Catharsis going this long. I planned for it to be smaller snippets about certain things. And I didn't plan it to be politically based. But here we are. But as I always do, thank you. Thank you for me and joining in my catharsis. Please like and subscribe. I know a lot of you tend to watch. You don't like, you don't subscribe. It would really help. Helps the algorithm. Like I said before, for any of you that are new, I don't get paid for this shit. I'm not monetized yet. There's certain things you got to do in order to get there. Not yet. Not yet. So just help with the algorithm, please. That's all I'm asking for. But that's all I got for right now. Like I said, Wildcard Cinema records this weekend. And I'm sure I'll be back next week with God knows what else is going to fucking happen. But that's all I got. Thank you for joining me. And I'm out.
It's the karma's gonna get you. Gonna knock you around the head. Better get yourself together.